4:17 p.m., light rain, 54 degrees, the smell of wet cedar in the air, and I'm speaking from a narrow room above a shuttered coffee shop on Northeast Alberta Street, Portland, Oregon. My name is Mason. The station was an indie internet stream once, a hobby with playlists and late-night callers. When the grid started wobbling yesterday, I pulled an old transmitter out of storage and strung a dipole from the brick chimney to the fire escape. If you can hear me, I'm broadcasting at 101.7 FM and 710 AM, with a rough carrier on 462.675 megahertz if you've got a GMRS handheld. The signal drifts when the wind hits. I'm riding a car battery and a small inverter that whines like a mosquito. I've got 3 more batteries downstairs and a solar panel that looks like it came out of a yard sale. This is not a real station, and I'm not a real host, but there's no one else talking. If you can hear me, you're not alone. The first strange thing had nothing to do with blood or panic. It was the birds. Yesterday at 6:02 a.m., the crows on the power lines along Killingsworth lifted all at once, screaming, and then they hung a block east over a grocery lot like they were stuck to the sky by magnets. They didn't circle. They didn't perch. They just held there, wings beating, shouting at something I couldn't see. I was on my bike with a thermos of coffee and a loaf of bread on the rack, and I remember slowing down because the sound felt wrong, like a fire alarm that came from the open air. At the same time, a TriMet bus rolled past with the driver holding a rag to his face. The bus wasn't in service. The seats were empty. The windows had streaks I thought were rain, but later I realized that the sky was still clear then. There was also a smell, sweet, like rotting apples, not from trash day, heavier than that. Phones were fine until around 10. Wi-Fi bounced, but LTE held. People were still posting. Traffic on I-5, a pop-up thrift market in a parking lot, a dog in a sweater, then one push alert, then 20. Then the feed stopped moving. I remember watching a video from a downtown bar where the bartender said staff had to stop serving because the taps made a noise when they opened, like a long inhale, and the beer came out in a foam the color of tea. Behind him, a woman swayed in a booth with her face pressed to the glass. No one went to her. The clip froze and never loaded again. That was the first hour the networks felt thin, like they were being pulled by hand. By noon, the day looked normal if you didn't look at people. Traffic lights flashed red. The big sign over the river bridge stuck on an amber message about an incident westbound, and then cut to black. In Lad's edition, I saw a man standing in the middle of the roundabout holding his phone like it was a compass. He turned, took 3 steps, stopped, turned again, took 3 more. He wasn't drunk. He was mapping something in his head. When a car honked, he didn't move. The driver went around him, hand out the window, swearing, and the man didn't blink. I went past, thinking I should say something and didn't. That will sit with me for a while. The first true break came from the scanners. Around 1:30 p.m., the Portland Fire talk group filled with clipped calls about individuals with severe altered mental status. Multiple locations. Crews arrived and then went silent. Dispatchers repeated calls for an ALS rig on SE 82nd and Holgate, then another at Powell and 21st, then a third near the Ross Island Bridge. The dispatcher's voice got slower and flatter, like she was reading a list she didn't want to see. Something was spreading, and it didn't look like the flu. Paramedics reported bites. They used that word. Bites. They asked for law enforcement support because patients were fighting, not with fist swings but with teeth, and not stopping when the tasers clicked. Then the channel went encrypted, and that was that. At 2:08 p.m., a push from the county health department hit whatever phones were still connected. Avoid hospitals unless life-threatening. Shelter in place. Boil water if you can. And do not approach anyone showing signs of disorientation, bleeding from mouth or eyes, or extreme aggression. Aggression is a clean word for what we saw next. On 15th and Alberta, a guy in a hoodie came at a cyclist who dropped his chain. The cyclist raised the bike like a shield, and the guy hit the rear wheel with his face, mouth open, not even putting his hands up, teeth on metal. It made this grinding sound I can't stop hearing. The cyclist fell backward and kicked until the guy slid under the frame, still chewing. Someone threw a brick. The guy stood up like nothing had landed, blood all over his chin, and went right back in. The brick thrower ran. The cyclist left the bike and limped into a yard, screaming. No police came. About the grid. About an hour ago, the power dipped like an elevator drop and came back dull. The fluorescent sign in the window below me is stuck on with a faint white glow, like a ghost light. My neighbor across the alley said the hydro dams upriver were modulating because fish ladders had failed. I don't know if that's true. He also said the gas stations are locking their pumps and taking cash only through tiny windows. I do know this. The water coming out of the tap in my sink smelled like pennies and turned the coffee filter orange. If you've got a pot, fill it. Bring it to a hard boil for a full minute, then let it cool with a lid. If you've got a filter, use it after you boil, not before. If you don't have either, set a clean cloth over a bowl and pour through, then boil. I'm saying this like we're camping, because that's what this is now. I'm going to say what people are calling it. No one is using the word on the emergency bulletins. They say violent outbreaks, abnormal behavior, clusters. But the feeds that still work, the DMs that slide through, the voices on shortwave, everyone says zombies. I can't make that word fit in my mouth without feeling dumb and scared at the same time. But I saw a man take a bite out of a bicycle, and I saw a woman take a bite out of a man, and both stood up when they should not have. If you want a softer word, pick one. If you want to live through tonight, call it what it feels like, and act like it. If you can transmit, I'm listening on 462.675 megahertz, privacy code off. If you're on CB, try channel 9. If you've got a Baofeng and only know the basics, turn the knob to 462.675 or 462.700 and hold the button. Keep it short. Say your name and street. If you can't transmit, you can still hear me on 101.7 FM and 710 AM. But the AM is dirty and picks up every lightning tick in the clouds. If my AM drops, switch to FM. If they both die, count to 60 and try again. I'll cycle the power to keep the batteries from tanking. My range is maybe 5 miles on FM, a city on AM if the rain stays light. I need to tell you how this started for me, because it will help me keep my head clear. At 5:48 a.m., a text from my sister lit my phone. Stay inside. Dad at ER. Don't call. Dad lives in Gresham. He's 73, diabetic, stubborn. He walks to the grocery every morning to spy on the coupons. His words, not mine. He fell on the sidewalk, hit his head. Ambulance took him to Adventist. My sister works at a clinic in Beaverton and said the ER halls were full before sunrise, with people who couldn't stop shaking and people who weren't shaking at all, just staring, mouths open, as if someone had stuck a magnet under their tongues. She said one guy reached out and grabbed a nurse by the ear and didn't let go when 3 orderlies pulled him away. He didn't blink while he did it. He didn't blink when they sedated him. She said Dad was in a hallway bed, eyes open, mouth open, breathing like he was listening for something. By 11, she stopped answering. I called from a landline here at the shop around noon, and a recorded voice said the hospital was on a full diversion and to hang up. I didn't hang up. The recording repeated. I listened to it 4 times like the words would change. They didn't. Here's what I think is happening, and I'll label this as guesses from a man with a radio and a lot of fear. First, it's not rage. Not only rage. People talk about movies. This isn't speed. It's compulsion. A loop. Something about sound or scent triggers a chase and a bite. The bites matter not because of blood loss, but because soon after, the bitten act like the biters. It's fast. Faster than rabies. Not instant, but not days. Sometimes minutes. That suggests either an agent that doesn't care about the immune system or something that rides the nervous system and tells the body to copy it. Agent could be in water, could be in air, could be both, with water as the strong dose. We're a river city. We drink the river even when the city draws from wells and reservoirs. The pipes and joints all sleep in that network of water. If you can avoid city taps, do. If you can't, boil. A voice on 7.238 megahertz around 3 p.m. said the National Guard in Salem had been called up with orders to block the I-5 interchanges and keep people from pouring into the valley. Another voice, shaky, said the order wasn't to block roads, but to guard water treatment plants because the stuff is swimming in there. A third voice said that was stupid, because water treatment kills most things if it's working. So maybe it isn't working. And maybe the people who run those plants didn't come in today because they were home with a fever, or because their boss told them to stay away. I can't confirm any of that. I can confirm that the NOAA weather radio, which rarely says anything but wind and tide, ran a bulletin at 3:41 p.m. that never once used the word weather. It said, remain in your homes, secure doors and windows, and avoid eye contact with anyone exhibiting unusual vocalizations or hostile fixation. Hostile fixation. That's what they're calling the look. If you're listening near me, you know the sound I mean. It started an hour ago when the rain got steady. It's like someone popping their tongue at the roof of their mouth, a clicking that doesn't fit how a person should sound. It comes in from the alley and the street and the open stairwell like an echo you can't map. If I stop talking, you might hear it through the table and the mic and the wires. I keep thinking it's a leak in the pipe above me, but it speeds up when cars pass, like the sound of the tires on the wet road makes the clicking change. Maybe it's tied to sound. Maybe it's tied to motion. Either way, keep lights low and stay away from windows that face the street. If the grid holds and you've got the old bulbs that hum, turn them off. If you've got diodes that don't hum, maybe you can keep one on in a hallway where it won't show from outside. I've got a headlamp wrapped in dish towel to cut the glare. I'm gonna take a call. The handheld is on the table with a paper clip jammed into the belt clip so it stands upright. If you're on 462.675, I'll open the squelch. Say your name, your street, and what you see. Name's Anna. I'm on Northeast 33rd and Prescott. I can see the park from my second floor. There are 2 men in the baseball field. One is limping. The other is walking beside him, slow, like he's watching him and waiting for him to fall. The limping one stops and turns and waves at the windows like he's asking for help. The other one puts his hands at his sides like he's a kid at a choir, just standing there. And when the limping one looks away, the other one leans in with his head like he's sniffing his shoulder. I want to shout, but my son is asleep in the next room, and I don't want to wake him. Anna, if you can hear me, stay quiet. Do not call them. If the limping man makes it to a door, you will want to open it. Do not open it. If you must help, you can drop a bottle of water and a towel from a height if you have rope. but understand that both could be used by the other man to mark your location. You are not a bad person if you don't help. You are a parent protecting a child. If they move away, text me a yes if the towers come back. If not, check in at 30 past each hour. I'll be here. Another call. This is Ron in St. John's. My wife is a nurse. She bicycled home from Legacy 2 hours ago. She says a man walked into the ER with his jaw out of joint. He kept pushing on it with his thumbs to pop it back where it belonged, and it kept sliding down again. He bit through his lower lip and didn't react. They tried to sedate him, but he didn't slow. She said the sedatives didn't act normal. People got heavy and then popped awake when a code blue sounded. She said the codes wouldn't stop. She said the code bell itself might have been the problem, the sound, that once it rang, anyone close who was on the edge would stand up again and go for the nearest throat. She's asleep now. I put a dresser in front of the door and plugged the vents with towels. Do you think that's enough? Ron, you did the right first things. Add water to your tub if you can. If you have bleach, regular, not scented, add 8 drops to each gallon you store and wait 30 minutes. If the water smells like bleach, you did it right. If you have earplugs, keep them close. If you don't, tear strips from a clean shirt and twist them and keep them nearby. The sound may matter. The dresser will slow a push, but screws and wood matter more. If you have a drill, set 2 screws into the jamb at an angle above the latch. If you don't have a drill, a hammer and 2 nails help. If you have neither, stack the heaviest thing you own against the door and put books or pans on top that will fall and make noise if the door shifts. Keep a quiet alarm that only you can hear, not the hall. The phone on the desk has a dial tone every 3rd try. I called Mom again, then Dad's number, then the hospital, then a number in Salem that a ham operator said was a guard line. No answer on any. My sister's last message was a period, a single dot sent at 2:56 p.m. I don't know if she meant it like a full stop, or if her phone was in her pocket and her thumb hit it in a hurry. I keep staring at it like I could read a tone from a dot. People always say they missed the last call. I didn't miss it. I got a dot. I'd trade that dot for a swear word or a grocery list or the sound of traffic. Let me talk about food, because it's easier than talking about the bodies I can see at the far end of the block. If you have a pantry, you have time. If you don't, you still have time. If you can, avoid the big stores. Avoid anywhere with a lot of glass and shelves. Small corner stores are traps right now because the doors are a foot from the street and the aisles are tight. If you must go, go with a list. Go fast. Don't think about perishable. Think about calories you can eat without cooking. Peanut butter, crackers, canned beans with the pull tabs if you don't have a manual opener, sardines if you can stomach them, powdered milk if you have a kid or a dog who can't handle the change. Rice and pasta are fine if you have water and a stove or a grill, but you might not have those tomorrow. If you're lucky enough to have neighbors who aren't bleeding or screaming, knock once, step back 6 feet, and talk through the door. Share lists so you don't double up and waste a run. Trade one thing for another like it's already a new world, because it is. About injuries, clean bites with soap and water, not just water. Flush for a long time. I mean minutes. If you have iodine or an alcohol-based sanitizer, use it after washing. Cover with a clean cloth. If you have cling film, that's better than a bandage because it won't stick to the wound and you can see the edges. If you got bit and you feel fine, I'm not going to lie to you. Be honest with your people. Make a choice about where you sit and what you touch. If you feel heat behind your eyes, if your jaw aches, if your hearing feels like it's underwater, Tell someone to tie your hands loosely with a scarf and to talk to you in a calm voice from across the room. If you stop answering, they should leave. If you wake up again, they should not approach. I hate saying this. I hate that I'm thinking of my father while I say this. I don't know what I'll do if I find him sitting in a hallway with his mouth open. I don't know if I can walk by. I'm going to share what someone with a badge said off the record. Around 2 p.m., a friend of a friend who works at a water bureau texted a photo of a lab screen. It showed counts of something in a sample marked raw intake. The number was high, not bacteria, not a normal coliform spike after a heavy rain. The tag said something like, viroid fragments. I'm not a scientist. I know the word from articles we share when we want to scare ourselves about agriculture. The point was that it was small, smaller than bacteria, and not alive in the way we like to think of alive. It was code. Code that tells a cell to do something weird. If it's true, then this isn't a parasite with little legs swimming in your water. It's a message in a bottle your body opens. The bottle doesn't care about chlorine as much as it should. The bottle rides through and waits for a sound. Maybe the sound is a hiss or a click or a bell. Maybe the sound is a pattern in your own speech. Maybe the sound is your pulse in your ears when you stand fast. This is me guessing, because guessing feels like action. If you know I'm wrong, call me and tell me why. Someone is on the door downstairs. It's slow, not a knock, a touch, then another touch an inch lower, like a blind person reading a word. I'm not going to the window to look. I already made that mistake an hour ago, and a face turned up where the glass meets the frame and the eyes were wrong. The pupils were big like a dog's in the dark, but it wasn't that. It was the way they didn't track. They didn't slide to find me. They parked on a point and stayed there while the head moved, as if the eyes were hung on a peg and the skull spun around them. I backed into the bookshelf and knocked over a stack of radio manuals. The face clicked its tongue like a metronome, and then went away when a siren cried 2 blocks over. I don't know how long I can keep this up. The inverter will trip if I draw too much, and the mic eats the battery faster than the receiver. But I will sit here for as long as the voices come in. If I go quiet, it will be because I'm switching batteries. Count to 200 and try again. If I don't come back, then assume I'm resting in the space between 2 hands on a clock. I am tired. I haven't eaten. My hands shake when I type words on my phone, and the space bar puts 2 spaces half the time. But saying these words makes me feel less like an animal. If you are listening in an apartment, in a car, in a stairwell, on a rooftop under a leaking tarp, you are part of a line that stretches from you to me and back again. Hold on to that line. Pull when you feel it go slack. Another voice. This is Jamie, Lentz neighborhood, near Southeast 92nd and Woodstock. My neighbor tried to drive south. He made it to Foster Road. He said the overpass was jammed with cars and people were out of their vehicles, not yelling, not anything, just standing in the lanes looking east. He said when he honked they all turned in the same movement, like they had rehearsed it, and they started walking toward him. Not running. Walking, but at the same speed as each other, like a metronome. He reversed and hit a fender, and came back with the rear bumper dragging. He's bleeding from his wrist where the airbag cut him. I can't stop it from bleeding. Do I use a belt? Jamie. No belt unless the blood is pulsing and the limb is going gray. First, press. Clean cloth or the cleanest thing you own. Press and hold without peeking. Hold for 5 full minutes. If it soaks through, do not remove the first cloth. Add another on top and press again. If it's still gushing after that, and only then, you can use a tourniquet 2 inches above the wound. Twist until the bleeding stops. Write the time on his skin with a marker or pen, but try pressure first, and keep him quiet. The sound of pain is a flag. Theories from the big sources? The cable channels froze on a graphic with a phone number that tells you to go online for more information. The radio stations that still have a board op are reading from a script about a public health event and asking people to call a clinic that doesn't answer. A woman on shortwave with a clear Texas accent said she had a cousin at Fort Lewis who sent her a picture of a briefing slide and that the slide said, "Behavioral contagion with acoustic cueing." If that sounds like science fiction, I agree. But here we are. She said they were told to keep people away from large spaces with echoes. No stadiums, no malls, no bus depots. She said the slide said to tell people to whisper to each other if they had to speak. I am failing at that. I am talking loud enough for you to hear me over a cheap FM signal. I am sorry. I will try to hold it closer to the mic. I'm going to read names. If you hear a name and have news, call it in. If you don't want your last name on air, just give the first. If your kid is with you and you want to tell someone they are okay, say their name and say, "Okay, that's enough. That's a day's worth of light. Mark on Fremont, okay? Lila on Mississippi, okay? Aaron near Laurelhurst, okay with dog. Ben at PSU, unknown. Dad in Gresham, unknown. Sister in Beaverton, unknown. The man at the roundabout, unknown. The woman at the bar booth, unknown. The bus driver with the rag, unknown. The crows, gone." If you're outside the city and you can hear this, tell me what it looks like where you are. Is it only here? A caller from Vancouver earlier said the river looked wrong, like the surface had a skin that moved slower than the current. He said fish were at the surface with their mouths open, not gulping, just open. He said a boy threw a pebble and one of the fish turned its head toward him as if it heard the pebble hit. Fish don't do that, not like that. If the water is a messenger, then the river is a long string between towns that all hum at once when plucked. I can feel despair in the room, like a draft. I don't want to spread it. So here's the part where I try to thread the needle between truth and hope. You can live without power. You can live without a phone. You can live without a car. You cannot live without water. And you cannot live if you open your door to a thing that is not a neighbor anymore. So be kind inside your walls and hard at your threshold. Share what you can through the crack, and know that you are not mean because you don't let someone in. Make a plan for the night, even if the plan is to sit and count between breaths. Set a time to check windows. Set a time to check on each other in your house. If you are alone, set your phone to vibrate every hour and call your name out loud when it buzzes so you hear a human voice, even if it's yours. I'm going to rotate the battery in 5 minutes. If I drop, give me 200 seconds. I will come back if I can. If this is the last thing you hear from me for a bit, remember, keep the lights low, keep your voice low, boil if you can, and do not go toward the clicking. If you find yourself drifting toward a sound, stop and count backwards from 100 while looking at a point on the floor. Tie your mind to numbers when the world tries to pull it toward noise. This is Mason on 101.7 FM and 710 AM, and a scratchy handheld stepping on 4.6, 2.675. Rain steady, wind out of the southwest. Sun somewhere behind a lid of cloud. The smell of wet cedar is still in the room. I can hear feet on the stairs and then nothing, just the quiet between drops. And I'm still here. If you're still here, breathe with me once. In, out. We keep the line between us tight. I'll be back after I swap the battery. I'm back. batteries swapped without sparks or fireworks. The inverter grumbled, but held. It takes about 3 minutes to get everything stable. The mic gets quiet, the receiver hums higher, then the voice comes back like a person waking. It's 7:02 p.m., cold enough that my breath fogs the window when I lean close. The rain has slowed to a thin hiss. Street lamps are patchy. Some are on, some off, and where they're on, the light looks like it belongs to a different time. Down below, a couple of people moved along the sidewalk with plastic bags over their heads. I hope that was a choice, not a panic. I keep thinking of the crows and how the first thing we noticed was wrong. And now the second thing is we can't trust the places we trusted. The radio's range tightened when I switched the battery. FM is a little happier now, but AM is static and a ghost of a signal. If you're on AM and you hear me softer, move to FM when you can. If you've got a handheld, check your battery level. The last thing you want is to be mid-call and have the indicator go red. Tape a spare to your chest. If you have a car battery and an inverter, siphon the power only long enough to run a low draw. Do not try to run a toaster or a microwave. I learned that the hard way once in college. The breaker trip sound is too loud and will make everyone in the block think the apocalypse got industrial. Trust me on that. More people called while I was swapping. A man named Luis from Hillsborough said his street looks like a line of mannequins with their heads turned toward the sound of a garbage truck. He said the mail carrier left the truck running with the hazard lights on and ran down the middle of the street to the back of a house. He said the door opened and someone was pulled out, and then another. And then a neighbor launched a garden hoe, and the noise of it hitting something was the first real sound of a fight he'd heard in hours. Luis said the neighbor didn't get close enough to see faces, but he said the hands were wrong. Not human-like, thinner, with quick movements like a spider's. He said he crawled to the fence and watched the neighbor drag the body to the porch and nail the door shut with 2 quick hits, and then he drove off. If you hear a nail gun or the sound of hammering, those are good sounds. They mean people are trying to make space for themselves. An operator on the 2-meter band said a convoy of National Guard vehicles moved north on I-5 around 5:30 p.m. Blue lights off, lights not strobing, traveling slow like they were watching the median. The person on the radio didn't say which unit. He said he was not supposed to say. That's when the tone changed on most emergency channels. Clipped, cautious. I heard one deputy say over the UHF feed that they'd been told to avoid engagement unless they had heavy cover. Avoid engagement. It's a weird civilian phrase for soldiers. It implies someone with a clipboard said to avoid blood. If they're avoiding, it might be because fighting makes things worse, or because whatever this is doesn't stop when hit. I don't know. I heard an echo of something else on a low-frequency channel. Protect the plant. The plant they were talking about sounded like the words for a water treatment plant. Protect the plant. If you live near a water plant, watch for more vehicles and people with vests who look like contractors. Do not assume they are contractors. Ask for ID through a closed window. I got a call from a man named Omar in Milwaukee who said his kid woke up screaming because the tapping on the bedroom window sounded like someone playing a rhythm on a mug. He said it started slow and got faster, and when it hit a tempo, his kid stopped crying and put his hands on the glass and smiled. Omar moved the kid to the closet and put a mattress in front of the door. He says the tapping moved along the siding, and when it hit the spot right under the porch light, the light flicked, and a face appeared in the half-shade. Eyes like small black stones, and a smile that wasn't a smile. He said he's never prayed before in his life, and that when he thought of leaving the house, he felt an ache in his shoulders that went away when he sat down. Omar, I want you to keep the kid in the closet. Wrap him in a blanket and let him listen to a story you know by heart. Tell it slowly and count the lines so the kid's mind has steady anchors. 1, 2, 3. An anchor is what keeps us from floating when the tide of panic comes in. A nurse who called from an urgent care in Tigard said their clinic was flooded with people who were confused and people who were not moving. They put beds out in the parking lot because the fluorescent in the clinic made something worse. Patients who had been sedated regained focus and then lunged for staff. The nurse said they started to stop sedative protocols because the drugs did not behave the way they were supposed to. That same nurse said they secured the doors with sheets and gaffer tape and put a sign that said, in big marker, "No entry," and blew the horn on a car every half hour to see if those outside would respond in an organized way. She said some did respond by moving to another side of the lot and not touching the sheet. She said they were amazed. Small actions have a kind of gravity. I need to say this plainly. Weapons change choices but not outcomes. If you have a gun and you've never fired it before, the stress will make your hands unsteady, and you could shoot someone you love by mistake. If you have a gun and you know how to use it, it will help briefly if the things are nearby. But bullets only remove the thing in front of you. They don't stop the pull toward sound, the compulsion in the bite or the touch. I'm not saying don't defend yourself. I'm saying plan like bullets are a last line, not a first meal. For most people, a locked door and a heavy table will buy time. A loud, sudden noise will buy time. A neighbor with a clear schedule and a plan to check each other is worth more than a single high-caliber round. There's a message being passed on slow cycles on the ham bands about trains. Someone on 80 meters said there are long freight trains stopped on the east tracks of the Union Pacific Yard. Engines idling. Crews gone. If you live near the rail, do not go to the tracks. Trains draw all kinds of curious people, and none of the people you want to meet. Another voice said to watch bridges because foot traffic will form on overpasses, and sometimes the things walk right into lanes of cars and then stand and block them. If you get into a vehicle and your route uses bridges or overpasses, slow down and watch for people standing in rows like a field of scarecrows. If they are there, do not stop. Go around. Make a wide arc. If you are trapped on a bridge, back up until you have space and then drive forward and away. The bridges are choke points. They become nightmares if you stop. Here comes another caller. Sasha from Beaverton. My neighbor Patrick went outside to get the paper. He walked to the end of the drive like he was on a mission, and he came back holding a raccoon like it was a child. He was petting it and talking like it was a dog, and he kissed its head. Then he looked up at the porch light, and when he saw me, he smiled. And then the raccoon bit his thumb off. He didn't yell. He licked his thumb, put it in his mouth, and then he walked past me and touched my shoulder on the way by like he wanted to say hello. I locked my door. I'm hiding. The raccoon walked off into the yard, and then the neighbor followed it. Sasha, keep quiet and keep the curtains closed. If he comes to your door, do not speak. Do not open. If you must communicate, write on a piece of paper and slide it under the door. If the paper comes back with a smudge of red, do not open. If the paper is clean, it's safe to be cautious. But you still can't be sure. People have been fooled by small things that look like a familiar shape. I'm tired, but not because I've been awake. I am tired because my muscles keep thinking they should stand and run, and then my mind says no and sits down. That back and forth wears you like an old coat. I remember a neighbor from a month ago who always had a radio on with classical music. I went by his house earlier, and his porch light was on, and his radio had 3 stations in a loop: classical, a talk show, and then static. There was a casserole dish on the table, cooling. The chair was pulled back like someone stood up. The dog bowl was full. The dog was not in sight. I knocked on the window and saw, for a second, a person in the window with their hand on the glass, eyes fixed, and when I waved, the person didn't wave back. I lay down in grass at the edge of the yard just to force my legs to rest. I did not sleep. I counted cars until I could count no more. I have to talk about the smell again because you can identify danger by small things if you pay attention. Where I am, the smell is a mix of wet wood, diesel from a generator, and iron. The iron smell is not always from blood. Sometimes it's from a pipe burst. Sometimes it's from the old heating coils. But when it's on the wind and it has a sweetness like fallen fruit, that's when I get nervous and I close the window. If your nose is trusted, let it be trusted. Smells tell stories. A plan for tonight: close windows that face the street. Seal gaps with towels. Make a bed in the center of the house if you can. Doors near the street should be barricaded with anything heavy you can move without calling attention. Keep a flashlight and a phone with a battery pack by your pillow. If you have children, tell a short story and sing a simple song until they sleep. Sleep in shifts if you can. One person sleeps while another listens. If you are alone, set an alarm to check the door every hour because the silence can be loud, and the loud thing can mask a knock in the long dark. Someone called and said, "If this is what movies taught us, we're in trouble." They were right. Movies teach us spectacle, not long nights. The real test is boredom and decisions. The little choices keep you alive more than the big ones. When to use water, when to move, when to help. Ask yourself what you can carry, not what you want to carry. Make a bag with medicines, a small can opener, water, and a change of clothes. Keep it light. If you have a pet, bring food and a leash. Pets give life, and people will help a person with a pet more than a person alone sometimes, because people see the pet as vulnerable and worth risking for. The last call I'll read tonight is from a woman named June in Gresham. She cried when she said my name. She said her mother would not stop singing a lullaby, and when she got closer, she realized her mother's mouth was moving, but the notes were wrong, the rhythm off, like someone playing a record at the wrong speed. She said, "I put my hand on her arm, and she smiled, and then she bared her teeth and leaned in." June said she had tied her mother's hands with a scarf and left a bowl of water out. June said she felt guilty and relieved at once. She said she'd stayed because she could not leave her mother with no one. Now she hears a sound like a bell and a low whispering in the hall. She said, "I think they are learning the song." June, if you hear me, the sound of the song changing is important. If you have a radio that can pick up shortwave, listen to the international broadcasts at night. They will play music and the beats will be slow. Try to hum a different tune to your mother. Hum something you both know that has no clicks or odd rhythms. Humans can hear patterns and sometimes break them. It's not a promise. It's a small chance. I will be on again in an hour with updates. I'll check the bands. I'll listen for your voices. And I'll keep this frequency alive as long as I can. If you can, leave a note by the door for a neighbor and slide it under. If you can, find someone you trust and tell them your plan for tomorrow. where you will meet, what food you have, who will guard which door. Planning keeps panic from being the boss. This is Mason on 101.7 FM, 7:10 a.m., and a handheld that smells like solder. Night is long. The city holds its breath. Keep your hands busy and your head clear. If you are with someone, hold their hand for a moment and tell them one true memory from before all of this. Say a street name, a song title, a favorite food, a name of a dog. Those small things stitch you back to the world you know. I'll come back with more when I can. It's 9:34 p.m. now. The rain has stopped, leaving the streets shiny and black, like sheets of oil laid down where the cars once moved. The silence has weight. Normally, after the rain, you'd hear tires swishing, the hiss of buses, the occasional laugh from people walking late. Tonight, it's just the low crackle of the transmitter and the faint ticking of something outside, steady, as if a single nail were being dropped on pavement over and over again. I've kept the lights off for an hour. Just one headlamp wrapped twice in a rag, pointed at the ceiling. The room smells of solder, wet wood, and damp clothes. My stomach has that hollow ache that feels less like hunger and more like warning. I've got a can of beans in my bag, but I can't bring myself to open it because the sound of the metal lid peeling might carry. That's how the world feels now. Even food makes noise you're afraid of. I need to tell you what I saw on the way back from the stairwell during the last battery check. Across the alley, in the second-floor window of the old barber shop, a man was pressed against the glass. He wasn't moving his arms, just his forehead and teeth against the pane, like he was trying to push through with his face alone. The glass fogged with every breath. Then it cleared, and then it fogged again. Rhythm locked like a metronome. His eyes weren't looking at me. They were fixed on the fluorescent buzzing above his head, unblinking, as if the light itself was calling him forward. Theories are moving fast on the ham bands. A man in Eugene who claims he's a retired virologist said he thinks it's a kind of acoustic hijack, a pathogen that rides nerves and waits for sound to give it orders. He said the government's silence makes sense if they realized they can't contain it with barricades or vaccines, because it isn't spreading by spit alone, it's spreading by listening. He said if the right frequency plays in your ear long enough, the infection switches on. If he's wrong, he's a crank with a radio. If he's right, then even speaking like I am now might be dangerous. But I don't know how else to hold the line. Silence is safer, but silence is also surrender. Callers are coming through. Here's one. This is Daniel from SE Division. My building went dark an hour ago. I went to the hall to check the breaker. 3 of my neighbors were standing in the stairwell, barefoot, not moving. One of them had his head tilted back like he was looking for stars, but were inside. When I whispered his name, he didn't move. When I coughed by accident, all 3 snapped their heads toward me at the exact same time. I slammed my door shut and haven't opened it since. Daniel, lock your door with screws or nails if you can. Do not speak above a whisper. Use written notes if you must pass word to anyone else in your building. If the lights are gone, move to the back of the apartment and keep a blanket over the window. Do not try to leave tonight. If you have water, ration it. If you don't, fill your tub while the pipes still run. Another call. This is Clarissa from Vancouver. I went to check on my parents. Their house was empty. On the table was my mother's rosary, laid out bead by bead in a circle. In the middle of the circle was a tooth. I don't know whose tooth. I don't know if it was hers or his. I heard a clicking from the basement, and I left. I didn't look down the stairs. I just left Clarissa, You did the right thing. If you hear clicking, don't investigate. Don't go toward sounds. Curiosity is the hook that pulls people in. I'm exhausted. My voice feels raw. I can feel myself slipping between fear and numbness, and neither is good. Fear makes you rash, numbness makes you slow. The middle ground is hard to keep, so I'll tell you something true about before this all began. When I was a kid, my father used to whistle when he fixed the truck in the driveway. I hated the sound of it then, because it meant Saturday chores and grease under my nails. Tonight, I would give anything to hear that sound again, even if it meant dirty hands. Hold on to those small things you once hated. They might be the things that save you later. For now, I'll keep the mic live as long as this battery runs. Check in on the half hour if you can. If your signal drifts, don't panic. Keep scanning. I'll cycle through frequencies when I have to. And remember, if you hear clicking outside your door, stay still. If someone knocks in rhythm, don't answer. They're learning rhythms. Break the pattern. Whisper if you must. Write if you can. This is Mason on 101.7 FM, 7:10 AM, and the handheld band. The night is young, but the world feels old. Stay quiet. Stay alive. I'll be here. It's 12:11 a.m. now, the kind of hour when, before all this, the city would feel half asleep but still alive. Late bars pouring out, delivery trucks rolling, a dog barking 3 blocks away. Tonight, the city feels hollowed out. The rain left behind a damp chill, and the air tastes metallic, like biting on aluminum foil. The static on the receiver keeps swelling and fading, like the atmosphere itself is unsteady. Every so often the carrier cuts out, and I hear nothing but silence. So deep, it feels like the world's gone. Then a faint tick comes back, and I know the signal is still alive. I've been standing at the window, just far enough back that I can see without showing myself. Out on the street, 2 cars are nose to nose, doors open, engines dead. The hazard lights on one are still blinking, orange glow reflecting off wet pavement. No people. But in the rhythm of those lights, I thought I saw shapes shifting near the curb, like bodies waiting in sync with the blink. When the light goes dark, they lean back. When it blinks, they lean forward. My stomach clenched when I realized it. I don't know if it's my eyes or if they've learned to match the rhythm of machines now. If you're near a car that still blinks, kill the battery. Rip the cables. Don't give them a pattern to follow. I heard a fragment on shortwave around 11:30. A clipped military voice, no station ID, just coordinates rattled off, and a warning. Maintain perimeter. Do not engage. Civilians should remain uncontacted. That last part stuck with me. Remain uncontacted. As if they've decided the safest course is to let us rot inside our homes. No rescue, no evacuation, just silence and distance. If that's true, then whatever this is, it's too wide for them to handle. Or maybe contact itself spreads it. A voice, a shout, a radio frequency. Maybe even what I'm doing now. Callers keep checking in. Here's one. This is Jerome from near Sandy Boulevard. I live above a laundromat. About an hour ago, I heard metal doors slam outside, so I looked through the vent. A delivery truck was parked with the back wide open. There were 6 people inside. They were crouched, not moving. A man in uniform stood at the edge with his rifle up, but he wasn't firing, just staring. Then one of the crouched people stood all at once, like a puppet yanked up by strings, and the rest followed in unison. The man with the rifle dropped it and ran, and the 6 climbed down and spread out in perfect steps, like they'd practiced. They walked in 6 different directions, not looking back. I don't know where they went, Jerome. Stay inside. If you see groups moving in formation, do not track them. Do not let them know you're watching. They're learning faster than we are. Another call came from Ruth out in Troutdale. Her voice shook when she said it. My brother came home late. He had bite marks on his arm. He begged me not to lock him out. He sat on the porch rocking back and forth, whispering my name. I watched through the glass. At first, he was crying. Then he started humming, a tune we used to sing as kids. My hands were on the lock. Then the humming turned to clicking, and his jaw started moving like it was unhinged. I couldn't open it. I couldn't. He kept humming wrong until the sound wasn't him anymore. It was something else. He stopped an hour later. Now he's gone. I don't know where, Ruth. If you're still listening, you did what you had to do. You loved him. That's why you didn't open the door. Don't let guilt trick you into thinking otherwise. I keep pacing the room. My legs feel weak, but my head won't let me sit still. Every corner has a shadow, and every shadow feels like it might move if I look away. I used to laugh at old horror stories, the kind where silence is scarier than screams. I don't laugh now. The silence is a trap. It makes you desperate to hear something, and when you lean in to listen, that's when it grabs you. I should eat something. I've got crackers, beans, a stale granola bar. I can't open the beans. Too loud. I chew the granola bar slow, small bites, trying not to crunch. Even eating feels like betrayal, like noise is too expensive. My throat burns from talking, but if I stop, the silence swells up like water rising around my chest. Before midnight, a voice broke through on CB Channel 9. A young guy, maybe early 20s. He said his name was Kyle, from Salem. He was crying, voice cracking. He said, "We tried to drive out on 22. The guard was there, but they weren't letting anyone through. They had a barricade of trucks across the road. I saw them pointing rifles at families, telling them to turn back. My mom begged. She had her hands up. They said, 'No one leaves.'" Then his voice dropped to static. I've been checking the channel since. Nothing. If you hear Kyle on 22, try to get his location. It's strange. I can feel despair building, but every voice I hear keeps me anchored. Maybe that's why I keep doing this, even if the signal's thin and the batteries bleed out. Talking, even into the dark, makes the world less empty. And if you can hear me, then you know you're not a ghost wandering a dead city. You're still human. That's enough for now. I'll stay on until this battery dies. If I drop, wait 3 minutes. I'll swap to the next. If that fails, give me until dawn. If you don't hear me by then, well, keep whispering. Keep breathing. Keep the line alive, even if it's only in your own voice. This is Mason, still on 101.7 FM, still on 710 AM, still clinging to 462.675. Portland isn't sleeping tonight. Neither am I. If you're awake, I'm with you. It's 3:42 AM. The rain never came back. The air is still heavy, and the streets look like black glass under the thin orange glow of the few lamps that haven't burned out. The silence is worse now, thick and pressing, as if the whole city is holding its breath at once. I keep checking the time on my watch because my phone died an hour ago, and without that glowing screen to tap, the hours feel endless. I've got 1 battery left after this, and I don't know how long it'll carry me. The neighborhood has shifted since midnight. I can hear more movement outside, not the shuffling of a single stray body, but a low blend of steps, dozens of them, slow and even, like the city itself has learned to march. Sometimes the steps stop all at once, and the quiet afterward makes me feel like they're listening. Not for me, not for anyone in particular, just listening, like they're waiting for a pattern to rise. When a dog barked 2 blocks over, the sound was cut short, not like it faded, cut off. And then the marching began again. I heard a voice break through on the ham band around 2:10 a.m. Calm, older, male, with a steady tone that felt practiced. He said he was broadcasting from inside the Selwood firehouse, that he had 23 people with him, mostly neighbors who rushed there when the first wave hit. He said they'd barricaded the garage doors with fire engines and chained the side doors shut. They had water, food, radios, and a plan. He sounded strong until the last sentence. He said, "We can hear them outside, tapping on the metal, like they know we're here. They don't push yet. They just tap. They'll wait for dawn." Then the channel went dead. I've been calling back every 30 minutes since. No reply. Another caller came through on CB. "This is Marla from Laurelhurst. The barricade's gone. We built one on 39th, piled cars and old couches and fence posts across the road. We thought it would hold." At 1:45, we heard the clicking. Dozens of them, from every direction. They didn't charge it. They didn't smash. They climbed it. I swear to you, I saw one crawling over the cars on all fours like a spider, and when it dropped to the other side, it stood up and smiled. They moved over us, not through us. We ran. I don't know how many got out. I don't know who's alive. I'm hiding in a crawl space. My hands are shaking so bad I can barely hold this radio. Her signal dropped after that. I tried to raise her twice. Nothing. If you're listening now, I need to say this plain. Barricades buy hours, not safety. They slow things down, but they don't stop what's coming. If you build one, keep it close to home, not out in the open. A barricade in the street is a trap. It gives them something to climb, and it pins you in place when you need to run. Inside, doors and hallways are better. Narrow spaces, choke points, anything you can control. I can feel fatigue crawling up my spine. My eyes burn, and my mouth tastes like copper from talking too long. My thoughts keep wandering to Dad, to the hospital, to that single dot my sister sent. I keep wondering if she knew, if she wanted me to have something final, even if it was just punctuation. A dot. A full stop. I keep circling back to it because it feels like a thread, and if I let go of it, he's gone. She's gone. Everyone's gone. A voice just came in, urgent, panicked. "This is Drew, from Any, Sandy, and 82nd. They're inside the building. We tried to be quiet, but the baby cried. They all turned, every one of them in the street. They didn't run. They just moved fast, all together. We shut the door, but they pushed. We're on the stairs now. I don't think we'll..." The line cut off. Just static now, and my own pulse in my ears. I don't want to lie to you. Things are unraveling faster than I thought they could. The city feels hollowed out, like only pockets of us are still fighting, still hiding, and even the ones hiding can't hide forever. The worst part is the silence from above. No government voice, no reassurance, no plan. Just taped messages and deadlines. It feels like we've been written off, like we're the ones outside the fence now. Still, I'll keep this mic open as long as I have batteries. If you can hear me, whisper back on the half hour. Say your name, your street, and one small thing you've done to stay alive. Even if I can't hear it, even if it's just static, say it. Words matter. Words are proof that we're still here. This is Mason, still alive on 101.7 FM, still holding 710 AM, still clinging to 462.675. The night isn't over yet. Neither are we. It's 6:27 AM. The sky is the color of bruised paper, a pale gray with streaks of pink that don't feel like sunrise so much as smoke drifting thin across the horizon. The streetlights cut out about 20 minutes ago, and the darkness that had pressed so heavy all night gave way to this eerie half-light. I thought dawn would make me feel safer. It doesn't. It makes the shapes clearer. From my window, I can see at least 7 figures in the intersection of Alberta and 15th. They aren't wandering. They're standing, spaced out, equal distance, each one facing a different direction, as if they've been placed on a compass. Every so often, one tilts its head back, jaw slack, mouth open. When one moves, the others shift a foot, 2 feet, and stop again. It's not random. It's not human either. It's like they're holding ground. The radios haven't stopped all night. Shortwave is heavy with chatter now that the bands are clear in the morning air. A voice from Seattle came through, weak but steady. Downtown gone. Pike Place overrun. They moved like a tide. Guard pulled back to bases. No ferries, no bridges. Water locked. If you're north, don't come here. Another from San Francisco. Embarcadero drowned in them. BART shut. No service. No power. A third from Spokane said simply, "They're everywhere." If these voices are true, and they feel true, then this isn't Portland. This isn't Oregon. It's the coast. Maybe the whole West. Someone patched through from a ham net east of here. Maybe Idaho. He said he's ex-Air Force, and he swore he saw a briefing on a secure channel. Civilian population in western states considered compromised. Containment lines drawn east of the Rockies. If that's real, then we've already been written off, left to collapse. His voice cracked when he said it, like even he didn't believe he'd read the words. Call-ins haven't stopped either. Here's one that came in just after dawn. Name's Harold, from Salem. We tried to build a barricade on Lancaster Drive with farm trucks and hay bales. Thought it would hold. At first it worked. They pressed against it but didn't climb. Then one started to hit the side with its head. Not fast, just steady. The others copied. Over and over, thud, 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 until the wood split. They didn't stop. When one bled, the others licked the blood, then went back to pounding. We scattered. I lost my wife. I don't know where she is. Harold's line cut to static. I can still hear the rhythm in my head. Thud, thud, thud. Another came from a woman named Grace in Vancouver. Her voice was hoarse, almost gone. She said, "I tried to leave at dawn. Thought light would help. Took my car across 4th Plain. There was a wall of them, not moving, not screaming, just standing, every one of them blocking the road. I honked once. Their heads all turned at once, and my windows fogged from the inside even though the air was cold. I left the car and ran. I don't know how I'm alive. I'm shaking. Not from cold, from exhaustion. My hands are raw from gripping the mic. My throat hurts, and my body feels like it's on autopilot. I keep telling myself to eat, but my stomach twists when I think of food. I keep telling myself to rest, but every time I shut my eyes, I hear the clicking in the silence. Theories are multiplying. Some say it's in the water. Others say it's airborne but dormant until triggered. The newest whispers are about sound, that the infection waits, listening, and sound gives it shape. That's why the clicking, the humming, the rhythms. Maybe they're tuning themselves. Maybe they're waiting for the right frequency to finish the change. If that's true, then every noise we make isn't just dangerous. It's fuel. Still, I keep talking. Because silence is worse. Silence feels like giving up. And if you can hear this, you're still here. That matters. If you're awake now, at dawn, I need you to do one thing. Take stock. Count your food. Count your water. Count your people. Write it down on paper. Paper doesn't fail when batteries die. Write down where you'll go if you have to leave and what time you'll check in with your group. If you're alone, write down one thing you'll do today to stay alive, even if it's just drink water or check the window. Words keep you human. This is Mason, tired but still here, on 101.7 FM, 710 AM, and 462.675. The sun is weak, but it's up. Don't trust it to save you. Trust the locks on your door. Trust the people who haven't left you yet. And if you're listening alone, trust that someone out here is listening back.